Wednesday, and we put Noemi's interview from the other day up on the YouTube channel, I Want to Know Your Story, this morning. And now we are going to do the second live interview on Instagram. Hi!
Hi,
Good morning, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am doing great, thank you. So, can you hear me
Finally.
okay? Can you hear me okay?
Yep, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yep, perfect. And do you have any echoes or anything crazy on your end?
No, I'm
Perfect.
just going to be up just a little bit. So if it starts sounding funny, let me know and I'll turn it back down.
Perfect. Awesome. So,
Cool.
I was just starting to tell people that we were going to be talking today about your journey to your family and your two little girls and how you got here. So, I'll let you kind of introduce yourself, tell everyone your name and how old you are.
Okay. I'm Jennifer and I am 31. I always have to think about that. Me and my sister call each other, am I 31? How old am I? I'm 31. I'll be 32 in June. And I'm married to my husband, Jason. He's in the Navy, and we kind of travel all over. With him being in the military right now, we're in Dallas. So because of the uterus transplant.
Awesome. So, before we get deep into your amazing story and your amazing journey, let me ask you the question that I ask everyone when we start these conversations. Um,
Okay.
and what do you think people's first impression of you is?
I've really been thinking about this a lot lately since watching your show because I've never actually thought about it. Well, I feel like a lot of people may think that I'm shy or quiet in the beginning just because I kind of sit back and observe the scene and kind of get the feel before opening up. And then once I open up, people see that I'm the complete opposite. I'm like a cat.
That's a good analogy. I like that. So you sorry, I just moved my eye. So you just had your second daughter in February, right?
Yes,
So you mentioned when you said where you were from that you're living in Dallas now, and that was
mhm,
due to the transplant and
correct.
the trial. So why don't you kind of start us out at the beginning and tell us how that all took place?
Okay, so I'm originally from Oklahoma, and I moved to Dallas whenever I was 9. So I'm from the area, so it kind of worked out being that the child was here in Dallas because I have family here and I have a whole bunch of support here, and I'm familiar with the area, so it kind of worked out. But do you want me to start off with my diagnosis or how we heard about the transplant?
You know what? I was looking into the diagnosis a little bit myself, so maybe people don't understand. So that would be really
Mhm.
great.
Okay, so I was diagnosed at 14 with something called MRKH. And basically, what that is it's a diagnosis that affects 1 in 5,000 women. Let me turn down my volume because I hear a little echo. Um, it's a diagnosis that affects 1 out of 5,000 women. And what that is someone who's born without a uterus. Um, we have our ovaries, everything in that department is normal. There's just no uterus. So it's like we have all the ingredients to make a baby, but no oven to cook it in. So, and how I found that out was I was 14 years old and all my friends were starting their cycles. And I'm like, hey, something's not right. Like, when's mine going to start? I thought maybe I was just like a late bloomer or something. And so I talked with my mom about it and she said, you're right. Like, me and my sister started that cycle when we were about 12. She's like, let's go to the doctor and, just get things started and see what's going on. So I went to the doctor, and my primary care doctor had no idea. He's like, I'm just going to send you to a specialist.
But
Um, so my primary care doctor did a pap smear, and what she found when she did the pap smear was that there was no cervix. So she was like, that's kind of weird. So she sent me to a specialist, and the specialist was actually a gynecologist. The gynecologist had no idea, so they sent me to a fertility doctor. And being 14 years old, going to a fertility doctor, you're like, oh, this is kind of cool. Like, what are we going to find out? And so we did multiple tests. We did MRIs. I had an exploratory laparoscopy where they just went through my belly button and took a little camera in there to look around to see, what they could find. And with the testing that they'd done, they seen that I had my ovaries perfectly normal, but there was no uterus. And the doctor that I seen had never actually seen a patient with MRKH, but he had read about it in a book. And so he said, I'm pretty sure what you have is a condition called MRKH. And he went to his office and pulled out a book and copied a few pages for us. And so I was like, so what does that mean for me? And he said, well, that means that when you're ready to have kids, you're not going to be able to carry your own child. If you want to have babies, you have to use a surrogate because you have your ovaries, so you can go through IVF and create your embryos, but somebody else will have to carry it since you don't have the womb to do so. And at the time, me being 14 years old, I was like, okay, you're not thinking about having kids at 14. And my mind at that age thought, well, mine just hasn't grown yet. It'll grow, like I'll create one and it'll happen. But whenever I look at my mom, you can just see the devastation in her eyes because she knew, that exactly what that meant. So growing up, I felt different, kind of like an outcast because, I'd be in school and someone would be like, hey, do you have a tampon I can borrow? And I'd be like, no, I don't. And so I wanted to be in that group, where I could offer a tampon or a pad. It sounds funny, but whenever you're the only one out of your friends that doesn't have what everybody else has, you feel different. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I didn't share that with a lot of my friends just because I didn't want them to know. And I didn't want them to know that I felt left out, or I just wanted to be normal, I guess you could say.
I understand that. Part of fitting in
Mhm.
is kind of going through everything at the same time everyone else is, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then, so as far as the transplant, my husband and it was in 2015. We were overseas in Bahrain, and I had seen that the UK was doing something called a uterus transplant that I had never heard of. And I was like, what is this? So I was doing my research and I was like, so I emailed everybody that I could and I said, how do I get on this list? Like, I want to be in this trial. I want to try it out. Well, they were only in the funding process, so they weren't accepting recipients at the time. So I was like, okay, well, I'll wait. Just keep me on the list. Don't forget about me. And then we had moved to a few other places, and we were really talking about trying to figure out how we could start our family because we were ready. Like we were ready to start the surrogacy process, whatever we had to do. And this time we were in Italy, and I came back to Dallas to visit my family, and I was having a talk with my mom. I was in one of those depressing modes where I just felt depressed, and I felt like there wasn't anything I could do to start a family, and I didn't want to disappoint my husband, which in fact, when we first got together, I told him right in the beginning, like, this is what's happening. Like, I'm not going to be able to carry children. And he's like, don't even worry about it. He said, we're going to do whatever we have to do to create a family, and we're going to be parents one day. So he was fully supportive, and that that made me super happy and made me feel comfortable and made me feel like we could do something to make it happen. So I went back to Italy and my mom called me and she said, you're never going to believe what I saw on the news. And I'm like, what? And she's like, Baylor Dallas is going to be doing a trial for 10 women to do a uterine transplant. And I was like, what? I was like, I have to go. I need to do all my research. I need to figure this out. And so I hung up the phone with her and I got online, did my research. I found the head nurse that was coordinating all of it. I emailed her and told her all my history and everything. And she called me and she's like, so can you come to Dallas and fly out for a screening? And I was like, yes, like tell me when and I'll be there. So I flew out and that was March of 2016 and did a whole bunch of testing, some ultrasounds, MRIs, bunch of lab work, flew back to Italy. And then in July, she called me and said that I had been chosen. And there were hundreds of women that had called to be in this trial. And it's like the thought of knowing that me out of hundreds of women have been chosen in the top 10 to do this. And so the next step was for her to find me a donor. And then In October, she calls and said that she found me the perfect donor. Can I fly out next month for the surgery? And I was like, or no, let me back up. Let me back up a little bit. Me and my husband flew to Dallas in August or September of 2016 to start the IVF process. So we did the stimulation, did all the injections and all that good stuff, and we created 5 perfect embryos that they put on ice for us. We had 3 girls and 2 boys. So then the next step was for us to wait for a donor. So then that's when my nurse called and said, "Hey, we found the perfect donor for you. Can you move out here in next month?" And I was like, "Yeah." But when you're a military family, it's kind of hard to just pick up your stuff and move because you have to go through all kinds of paperwork and all kinds of different things to move. But we figured it out. I went out there and I had my surgery in December and it was successful. I was the 5th transplant that they had done. The first 3 unfortunately failed due to lack of blood flow. The second one was successful, and she actually had the first baby boy born via uterine transplant, and then I was the second successful transplant. And after my transplant, 6 months later, is when we did the embryo transfer, and then I got pregnant on the first try. So then 8 months after that, I had my first daughter. And then 6 months after I had her, we tried again to do the next embryo transfer. And the reason why they want to do it so close is because we're on immune suppression and they don't want us to keep the uterus because it's not a life-saving organ. So they only allow for 2 pregnancies before they remove the uterus. And so I tried again 6 months after I had my daughter, and we had a couple of failures, unfortunately. But my last embryo took, thankfully. So we named her Jade because Jade is kind of like lucky, and she was our last embryo. But we had her, and then after I had her in February, I had my hysterectomy, and that's basically it. Kind of a long story, semi-short, I guess you could say.
I just learned so much in 10 minutes. So let me just clarify and see if I understood, and for people that are just joining on too. So the transplant, like you said, it's not a permanent organ. So it goes in, it does its job, and they take it out.
Exactly.
And they only allow, you said, 2 pregnancies?
Yes.
Now, how many?
The cool thing about it is, I just want to add one more thing. The cool thing about it is after they did my transplant, 30 days later, I had my first period ever. Yeah. So I had periods, monthly periods.
How old were you?
When I had it, I was 28.
Amazing.
So here I am, 28 years old, Googling first period. What do I do? And so it was crazy because whenever I got it, I wasn't sure if I was having organ rejection, like is the uterus falling out, like what's going on? And so I called my nurse and I was like, I'm bleeding. I don't know what's happening. And she said, you're probably on your period. Is it light or heavy? And I was like, it's heavy. And she's like, send me a picture of your pad. So I sent her a picture and she's like, girl, that's light. And I was like, what?
So I think that part of this that I find so fascinating, I mean, we're so used to hearing about heart transplants, and then Allie, who we interviewed in episode 2 of I Want to Know Your Story, she's had 2 kidney transplants.
Yeah.
And I learned in that episode that when you have a kidney transplant, they don't take out the kidneys, they leave them there. So she's actually got 4 kidneys in her. Right, that's what I said. But what I'm finding interesting about this is I find it so fascinating that them implanting a uterus makes everything else function the way it was supposed to. That's incredible to me.
They didn't connect the fallopian tubes. They basically just put the uterus in and connected it to arteries. So it was only connected by like 4 arteries. But with your hormones, somehow, I don't really know, like you ovulate and the egg doesn't go down. The egg probably goes down to the fallopian tubes and your body, I think, just absorbs the egg. But for us, it doesn't, you can't get pregnant naturally because the fallopian tubes aren't connected. So So I think it's just the hormones that make you regulate monthly. Like it's the craziest thing.
That's amazing. So
Yeah.
that was the question just came in that I was about to ask you when we went backwards in the conversation. But so you mentioned again they only allow two births from the uterus before
Mhm.
they do the hysterectomy. Have other people had two children?
I'm the first one in the US to have had two. In Sweden, there were women because they did the trial in Sweden as well, and there were a couple women over there who had two babies as well. And one of the doctors over there that led their trial, she actually moved to Dallas to help with our trial. So she's like one of the head doctors, and it's just amazing what they all do. But in the U.S., I'm the first one, and then hopefully soon there's going to be a couple more that will be having their second or trying for their second. But as of now, they've done our trial started off with 10 women, and now they've done 20. So my second daughter was the seventh baby in our trial, and we're gonna have another one soon, and we have a few more girls that are pregnant. It's amazing,
So
and
it's like your
it
own
makes me
little
so
built-in
happy
mommy and
to
me group.
yeah. And we're all really good friends. We have like a group chat. You know, we talk about things all the time together because it's nice to have someone that's going through the same thing. You know, something that you don't really see a lot of, and a lot of people don't even know that that's a thing. You know,
Yeah, that's amazing.
is that Dr. Fetman?
Uh-huh. No, that is incredible. So, are they nervous at all during the pregnancy?
Yeah, it is. It's risky because it's not something that's done every day. So sometimes, like if you have like a bleed or something going on, and you ask your doctor what's happening, what is this from, and they can't really tell you because it's new. Like it's like an experiment basically that they're trying. So we kind of just have to wait things out. But both of my pregnancies went really smooth. My first one I was able to carry to almost 37 weeks, and then this one I went to 38 weeks. And we have to, they do scheduled C-sections. They don't want us to go into labor and risk anything. So we do a scheduled C-section as close to full term as we can. So, yeah.
That
It's
is
crazy.
incredible.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It was definitely a bumpy ride, but it was totally worth it.
Oh, I,
Like
I can
from
only
going
imagine.
to growing up thinking you're never going to be able to carry your own child to then having two pregnancies.
And you have a
But then both
beautiful
of them,
family.
when they're born, they came out and they're both looking like their dad. I'm like, I went through all of that and they look like their dad.
I'm just like I said, I learned so many things. This is unbelievable to me. Um, and I'm sure that not only your husband, but your parents and his parents are just over the moon.
Yes, definitely.
And so
For
tell
sure.
me, you gave birth back in February to Jade, right?
Yes.
Now we have quarantine. So
Yeah.
did anyone get to meet Jade, or are you guys just kind of keeping people at a distance?
Yeah, we're not really letting anybody in the house right now. My mom and sister met her. Well, yeah, my mom and sister met her. But as far as my husband's family, he's from California, so all of his family is in Fresno and in Merced, so none of them have got to come. My sister-in-law had a flight scheduled and then she canceled, so it it's kind of a bummer because everybody's missing out on her newborn stage. You know what I
Right.
mean? And my sister lives here, but I still can't. It just makes me nervous to allow anybody in the house, especially with the newborn. I just don't want to risk anything. And it's just a bummer. So we do lots of video chats and I post lots of pictures and lots of videos.
How long after you delivered did they do the hysterectomy, or did they do it at the same time?
They did it at the same time. We discussed, since my last pregnancy went so smooth, we discussed possibly delivering naturally with this baby. And I was all for it. And then I kind of changed my mind get to that point and something happened. So I decided to go with the C-section, and then with the C-section, I got to hold the baby, do some skin to skin for like a minute or two, and then my husband held the baby right behind me, and they did my hysterectomy right there while I was awake. This was my epidural. So
I'm such a chicken, that would freak me out.
it freaked me out a little bit. I'm like, I need some oxygen. I can't breathe.
Right? So, what are the steps post pregnancy that may be different from a normal, quote unquote, natural / normal pregnancy to term? Does anything change for you?
The only thing that was really different is normal C-sections are horizontal, and so I have a scar that goes from above my belly button down to the pubic bone from the transplant. And then they cut through that same incision whenever I had my first daughter. And then they cut the uterus horizontally. So they go vertically with the skin and then horizontal through the uterus. And then they sew all that back up. And then whenever I had Jade, my second daughter, same thing. They go horizontally through the scar and then vertically through the uterus. So that was really the only difference with the C-section. I'm still able to breastfeed and all of that because my hormones, my body produces the milk, and everything is pretty much as normal as a normal pregnancy, I would say.
That's
Um,
magical.
and with the transplant, they transplanted the uterus and the cervix. So I had a cervix. And one question that I had whenever I was laying down about to have a C-section, I asked my doctor, "Can you check to see if I'm dilated? Like, I just want to know, like, is my body going into labor naturally?" And I was already dilated to a 3, so my body was doing what it was supposed to do.
That's
But I just
amazing.
didn't want to risk going into labor on my own. I'm trying to read all the
Oh yeah,
questions,
I've
but
been
I'm
reading them.
looking at
I've been
you
reading them. So
talking.
so there was what were the biggest risks involved, and were you sick at all like a typical pregnancy?
My first pregnancy, I was not sick. This pregnancy, I was just nauseous in the beginning, and I didn't have like any of the cool pregnancy things that I wanted to have. I mean, I was just out of breath all the time. I'm like standing up cooking, I would be out of breath. I would have to sit down and take breaks. So towards the end, I was like, I'm ready to be done. And then, as far as the biggest risks, I think the biggest risk, of course, is always going to be infection. And then, being on the immune suppression drugs, your immune system is suppressed, so you have to kind of be extra careful as far as cleanliness. And now, like, I can't even imagine with the other girls being immune suppressed with this virus going on. Like, you have to be extra careful. And then, of course, the risk of rejection. So, which I did have a couple of times where monthly we would go in and they would take a biopsy from the cervix. And since they didn't connect any nerves, we can't feel the biopsies. They would send that off, and that would kind of tell them if we're having any organ rejection or not. But after my first pregnancy, I started to grow nerves. So I was actually starting to feel the biopsies, which they were really surprised about that. They kind of wanted to look into that some more and see how that happened. But I had a couple of episodes where my biopsies came back showing slight rejection. So I would have to go and get a steroid infusion for 3 days, and then that kind of cleared it up. They called it inflammation, which is kind of like a slight rejection, but I couldn't tell. I mean, I felt normal. And so, but since I've had my C-section and been off all the medications, I feel like my energy has gone up a little bit more. But it's kind of hard to tell that also because I have a newborn, so I'm super tired.
What's sleep? I don't know.
Yeah, a newborn and a 2-year-old. They're like at the most needy stage in their lives right now.
More power to
Hence
you.
why it took so long for us to interview.
Someone had asked a question also in the scroll. I think it was my MRKH life had asked if you had both of your kidneys.
Yes, I have both of my kidneys.
Perfect. I'm unsure of the correlation, but I'm sure you
That
guys know.
I, I think that's part of, or can be a part of MRKH, is sometimes some women are only born with one kidney. and no uterus. I think
Interesting.
maybe because it's all connected somehow, but I'm not too familiar with that portion of it.
Awesome.
But
Well,
I do
and
have
someone
those
had
connections.
made a comment that wasn't it wasn't a question, but someone commented that they were actually donor number, it looked like donor number 20. So I just want to thank them. That's an amazing, amazing thing.
Is it
Um,
Nikki? I think her
yes.
name is Nikki. Yeah.
Yeah, it was Nikki. So that's
Super
that.
cool. Yeah.
that
We're super thankful for all the donors, and I haven't met my donor yet. I do plan on meeting her, and I was hoping to have met her already, but now with the virus and everything going on, that's kind of put everything to a halt. Um, but we do communicate through text through my nurse. And whenever I had my first daughter, she sent us balloons and a bottle of champagne and all that good stuff and sent pictures. And I actually found her on Facebook. I know who she is.
that is so cool
But
though.
yeah,
That is
yeah,
what I mean. We talk about, again, kidney transplants, heart transplants, lung transplants, all these different transplants being the gift of life.
hmm,
It's just another true gift of life. I mean, you wouldn't
yeah,
have been able to have a baby inside of you. You would have, like you said, used a surrogate. But that's
yeah,
amazing. I had
yeah,
never heard of MRKH till you sent me that video that you had done. Which hopefully,
yeah.
when we post this on the YouTube channel, I Want to Know Your Story, we can link that other video in the comments.
Yeah, and we're actually going to start sharing our journey a little bit more. With my first daughter, we were anonymous. Our story was out there, but we didn't show our names or our face, just because I didn't want any bad vibes throughout this whole thing until we were done. And now that we've had our second daughter, we're like, you know what? We kind of want to be more open and like show our faces and, just tell more. And so we're starting up a YouTube channel, and we have so much footage from the whole journey that we're going to put together and kind of just do like a family YouTube and get our story out there a little bit more, because I want those girls who are getting that diagnosis now to know that there is hope, you know? Because when I had that diagnosis, I didn't know anything about this. I thought that I would just grow a uterus, you know? And
It's
so it's like I just want them to see all of our stories and just know that there is something out there that can help them. They do have something to look forward to.
it is
We are waking up now.
incredible. Your story was incredible. Um,
Thank you.
I I love it. The comments, I'm loving them. Everyone's so supportive, and I'm glad you shared that because I was curious as to why the anonymity in the video that you had sent me. I thought that was interesting. So now I know, and I can understand that because I would imagine that, like everything in life, there's always someone that wants to say something negative, right? And
Yeah.
that's the whole reason that I like to do these interviews. Is I feel like, especially in a time like we're in right now with quarantine and not being able to really to connect with people, to connect people in a type of way and learn about other people's stories, but we tend to build ourselves up sometimes by tearing other people down. And I think that by doing these interviews and connecting people with strangers, really, and sharing the stories, the goal is that hopefully people can identify just a little bit, right, with
Yeah.
someone by what they've shared, and
Yeah.
make them feel not so alone. Like you said, you want to open up the story and make people feel like this they're not alone, that there are other people that have gone through this and what the hope looks like. And I think that's
Exactly.
really amazing and quite generous of you. I identify with your story. I obviously don't have MRKH. I obviously didn't even know about it, but I I moved around a lot, growing up, and so always wanting to fit in. I
Yeah.
understand, so I identify with that, with that part, and not feeling like you're part of the in crowd or have to offer what everyone else does or even know what that could
Exactly.
be.
Yeah.
So that's amazing. I have two quick questions for you, and then you and I had discussed something maybe we'll share with everyone.
Yeah.
So one, I saw the comment from my MRKH life again, and I can only imagine what connecting others does, and how that can make you
For
feel, and
sure.
and how inclusive versus exclusive it would be. So
Yeah, it's
first
like we're
question,
now like all part of a sisterhood, which we can relate to everything now, you know?
I think it's awesome. So real quick, what is something that would surprise people to know about you?
I would have to say it would have to go along with this journey that the family that I have didn't come easy. We worked really, really hard for what we have, and I just think that people need to know sometimes to get what you want in life or to get what you deserve in life, it doesn't come easy. You have to work for it and you have to follow your dreams. And if you follow your dreams and continue to move forward with it, then anything is possible.
So that's very inspirational and very true. So you and I talked the other day. We were messaging back and forth, and we thought it might be fun to introduce your family. Is
Yeah.
that a possibility?
Yeah.
Awesome. Let's do
I'm
it.
gonna take, they're downstairs, so I'll bring the phone down there. I don't know what they're doing.
But we'll do that, and then I'll ask
Mhm.
you the last question to close out the conversation with your family, if that's okay.
Yeah. Let me go downstairs and find
Yeah,
it.
absolutely. And while you're going downstairs, I'll thank everyone for tuning in with us today and giving Jen the platform to share her story. We connected and we've been talking about doing this for what, 5 months now?
Yeah.
And it's a interesting thing that a pandemic allowed us the opportunity to get together.
I know.
So yeah,
I'm
so
already doing this as it is, but I was just, especially after seeing your interview that you did on, was it Sunday or Monday with Noemi?
Sunday.
I was like, you know what, we need to do this. And it's also National Infertility Awareness Week. So I was like,
Yes.
what perfect.
How coincidental was that? I didn't even know, and you were the one that told me. Oh, look at these babies.
Oh, this is Gia. She's 2. She turned 2 on February 19th, and then 2 days after her birthday is when I had Jade.
Oh, so they get really close birthdays.
Yeah.
Hi, little one.
And this is Jason and baby
Hi,
Jade.
Hi, Jason. It's nice to meet you.
nice to meet you too.
Congratulations.
Oh, I appreciate it.
They're adorable. They really do
Thank
look
you.
like him.
They do. I told you. Gosh. Dia is finally starting to look a little bit like me. She
She's
said, "Oh,
such a ham. She's like, oh, look, there's a camera, Mom.
yeah, she's done. She ran off already."
Well, your family is beautiful, and I can't thank you for taking the time to share your story and empower other women like yourself and just in general. I want to close out our conversation with one last question, if that's okay.
Yes.
So, if after quarantine is over and you're able to walk down the street again, if there was one thing you could hold up a sign that could tell people something about you, what would you want it to say?
That I'm strong and I never gave up.
That is very true. You did not give up, and those two beautiful babies are proof of that. And kudos to your husband and to you for this amazing journey. And I'm honored that you shared your story with me.
Thank you. Thank you for
Absolutely.
having me.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And we will talk soon, I'm sure.